Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 4 of the Open Road podcast. I am Rob, co-host with Zach, and our special guest today is Mr. Dan Kilby, otherwise known as Kilby Media off Instagram. Dan is here today to chat about all things photography. I do a bit myself, but Dan knows a lot more than I do and is a lot more knowledgeable when it comes to photos and how to get good photos. And yeah, we can have a general chat about the photography scene, taking photos of cars, the world of social media around cars, and we'll just see where it goes from there. So I hope you enjoyed the episode.
So, Rob, you finally had your first proper event,
Yeah.
or is it? Have you had two now, or is it? You've just had one, and one's coming up, right?
Yeah, so we had a kind of a trial run a week before our first one. It was just an afternoon thing, very spontaneous, but it was good weather. I just put out saying, anyone want to go for a drive? Nice weather, and that went well. But yes, our first proper event, the Warwickshire Loop, happened last weekend, and it was amazing. We had 25 cars in total, and yeah, it was great. We had loads of photographers coming down to give their time to get photos. The run went smooth, no one got into trouble. Weather was, it could have been better. It was raining for quite a lot of it, but we pushed on through, and overall it was a really good event.
Yeah, good. You've had some good feedback as well, and to the point that you've actually doing Warwickshire Loop 2.0, aren't you?
Yes and no. So we were originally going to run it for a second time for those who didn't get on the first one, because there was quite a lot of people who just missed out on tickets. That ended up turning into more of an impromptu photo shoot. We got Dan down. We've got Mitchell 24/7 photography. You guys might know who he is. He came down. Camera by Matt on Instagram. He came down and just got some absolutely stunning photos of about 15 cars in total. And just spent a Sunday afternoon going about looking for awesome photo spots, and they all came out amazingly.
That was a good day.
Yeah. What did you think of both Warwickshire 1.0 and then obviously the impromptu 2.0 then, Dan?
Well, 1.0, it was great to see so many cars out, obviously after such a long time, sort of being cooped up and limited on how many people we could see. So seeing that many cars out was really good, and we thought the weather was going to hold. It didn't quite, so it got a little bit wet towards the end. But yeah, it was a good day. It was a good atmosphere. Was in good spirits, and yeah, it was definitely a sign of things to come. Really, no matter what the weather, we're still going to have a good time. And then 2.0 was, couldn't have asked for better weather. Glorious all day, and again, such a nice variety of cars that we saw. Bobby, you'll tested this, but that Paceman that we had there, that was a true one-off car. Really, it was a bit nuts, that. And then you had stuff like that. You had Scoobies, you had Z4s. It was a cracking day. Really was good.
Yeah, it did from the photos, because I didn't actually get on either of them. Because I was busy the second one, and I just couldn't. I was at the pub on the first time the tickets went out, so I've got my priorities straight. But so yeah, the photos looked amazing. Especially even of you, not even just of the car, because I saw on your Instagram earlier, obviously you with the photos of all the photographers, not just of the cars. So that was quite different in the way, because you don't normally see the person behind the camera, really.
With that post, I just wanted to sort of say thank you to all of the photographers that had took so much time out of their day to come down and for free take amazing photos. And we'll get on to the for free bit in a bit, because time's money, and these guys really know what they're doing, and the photos that they put out were incredible. But for me, the most important thing about a club, whilst having cool cars is a plus, it's about meeting people. It's about meeting interesting, talented people, and the most talented people we had on that day were the photographers. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of them.
Yeah.
It's appreciated.
Yeah, And like even the promo shoot that we had, like I'd never been on anything like that before, and even though I didn't have the well, I had my new BM, but it wasn't the most modified car, but you still got some awesome photos of it. Even with I really like the rolling shots with the M2 and my car, because my car looks like a cop car, and it looks like I'm chasing him. But then Rob likes the other way around. Rob likes the one with my car in the foreground and then the M2 in the background. So, but I love it the other way. So I've got that as my screen, my background on my phone, and I just like every time I see it, I smile. It's just like, oh, because I'd never really had a photo of my car, because I'd never really had a car to take a photo of, and even though I don't feel that it's still mine yet because I'm new to it, it's still nice to see it on the background.
Yeah, definitely, and that's sort of one of the reasons why I love taking photos, because then, like you say, like the smile on your face and the fact that it's your background, it's like, oh yeah, it's like a reminder that you've worked hard for something and you can show it off,
Definitely. Yeah, and Rob loves taking photos of his car.
Yeah,
he takes more photos of his car than anything else. It's other than his cat, but yeah.
Well, the thing is, the car's good. Point the camera in that direction and then put it on Instagram, and then But no, I really like the fact that you say that it's your, as Dan said, it's your phone wallpaper, because for me, part of the reason of creating the club is to create memories and to have fun with cars. That's the whole point. So when you say stuff like that, it is humbling to know that people genuinely do enjoy what we do.
Yeah. The only thing I will not remember is the cold, because I was the only person other than Lewis who drives the M2 to wear shorts. It was not the summer day. It was lovely and sunny, but it wasn't warm in the slightest.
It was a bit nippy that day, yeah.
It really was. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and even just to hoon my car around, even though like I wasn't going very fast, it was nice to get in it and go for that cruise. And there wasn't many cars there, but it was still nice.
Yeah.
And I got to meet new people, which is always a plus. So
yeah, exactly. That's the whole point of it. It's to just meet like-minded people, because in general, car people are a dying breed. Most modern, not modern, but most new drivers these days aren't fussed about cars. And obviously, the way with electric, these sort of cars won't be about for much longer. So it's nice to be able to meet up with like-minded people and enjoy these things while we can.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, and with your photography, how long have you been doing it for now then? And what got you into it in the first place?
So taking actual photos to a point where I'd class them as not your standard iPhone point and shoot photos is probably coming up to 2 years, near enough. So sort of about 20 months maybe. And the reason I sort of got into it is because I've always, since I can remember, since 12, 13, I've always been into cars. It's always been my number one passion. No matter what I try and do, I'd always come back to cars. Work in the motor trade as well as a technician, and then I just wanted something that I could sort of extend that arm of what I wanted to do. So a friend at work, previous work, was selling a camera for quite cheap. And I was like, yeah, sound, I'll have it, because he just wasn't using it, simply. And then it sort of grown from there, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, that's just the sort of background, and it's an itch then, and it's scratched, and you keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and there's an infinite amount of money and time and everything you could spend on it.
Yeah. What made you switch? So obviously you said that obviously you probably went from the iPhone or a phone photography to then actually what you deem as proper photography, and sort of why did you make the switch, and sort of how did you make the switch in that sense?
So I guess really I've never really taken, apart from when I was sort of 17, 18, like quite younger, when you just go to a car show and you just keep taking loads of photos because you want to remember that car, or you just want to remember the day and whatever else, and it comes up on your memories, and it's all grand. And sort of, I don't know, sort of the last 7-8 years, I sort of stopped going to car shows generally because life gets in the way a bit, as it does. And then I always see photos either of motorsport or product shots from like Bentley or Aston Martin from like their latest car that's come out, and they're so, for me, they're so clean, and you can tell it's not a shot that's just come straight out of the camera. Someone has spent a lot of time on that shot to make it exactly how they want it. So I think it was sort of that, thinking, oh, can I do that? Can I take a shot and then turn it into something which someone goes, yeah, that's pretty exceptional. And I think I'm on the road there. Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of people in this space, locally at least, you're one of the people I know who put the most amount of effort into post-photo work, i.e. sitting on a computer and editing them. When I take a photo, I just sort of do point and shoot. I upload it to my iPad, maybe a very, very quick tweak with the auto editing function, I'm ashamed to say, and I just send it out. And that's just how I do it. But you will spend countless hours, sometimes on a single photo, to get it right.
Yeah, so a prime example of that is a post I put up fairly recently of a friend's S15 down on the East Coast. I went down there a weekend, spent the whole day driving around the East Coast, really good. And one photo I spent about an hour and a half-ish on it, editing, just because there was loads of distractions in the photo. And then I got rid of one distraction. I was like, okay, I can now get rid of that one. And then it just sort of never ends, really, chasing that sort of perfect photo. And even now I look back at it and think, oh, I could have done that differently, or I could do that if I did it again. But yeah, it's never ending, the edit.
Yeah, when it comes to editing, what software do you tend to gravitate towards most?
So I use Lightroom and Photoshop, predominantly Lightroom for all the editing. And then if there's any sort of major cleanup or anything that needs properly removing, then I'll take it into Photoshop. Or if I ever do any light painting, because with light painting, generally you'll have 4 or 5 images that you've got to mask together and then sort of take away little bits of it and then add bits from the other images to make the final shot, so to speak.
Yeah. For those that don't know what that is, can you sort of explain that process, the whole light and masking multiple together?
Yeah, so light painting is generally you'll have the car. Normally it will be quite late at night, if not fully dark. And then you'll take various images, lighten up different sections. So you'll probably do like a front wheel, then a side, then the back wheel, and go all the way around. Put all those into Photoshop. And then at the end of it, you'll have an image where you've got the background, which is dark or darkened, and then you've just got your car lit up perfectly, which almost looks like it shouldn't be there, or it's been photoshopped, for want of a better word in. But it's a different element and a different type of shot that you can get, really.
Yeah. I guess the other way to do that is obviously, so with that, you put one photo on top of the other.
Yeah.
You combine them. I guess the other way you could attempt that's a similar style is to do like a long exposure where it's a single shot and the camera open for a certain amount of time, and then you take a light and you wave it over the car. But the issue with that is trying not to shine yourself, because if you light up yourself as you're walking around the car, then it shows in the shot. So that's quite an interesting and probably easier way, in a way, to doing it, because it at least means that, not easier, but it eliminates that risk of lighting yourself up when you're trying to do a long exposure.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, obviously, with anyone's skills can develop. So when I first started, the first ever shot I got, which was light painting shot, was a long exposure, like you said. So I just had it on, I think it was like 13 seconds, managed to go around the whole car. It was 2 people. One started at the back and went to the front. One was at the opposite side and went front to back. And then did it that way. And then the second time I tried it, I did, I think, about 5 or 6 layers, and then built them up bit by bit, and then create the photo that way. So yeah, there's many different ways you can do it. It's all just time and putting the effort in, really.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
when to effort, it's with photography. A lot of people, I get messages saying, "Would you ever do paid shoots?" And for me personally, the reason I don't do it is because I don't trust myself to keep the quality consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have an off day. Like, for example, I'm terrible at shooting in bright light. So if it's a really sunny day, write me off because I just can't get it right. If it's overcast, or if it's a sunny evening, if it's like a nice sunset evening, I can be pretty sure they'll be all right. But when it comes to paid photography and the sort of taboo nature around it, what's your take on it and what's your opinion?
So I guess it's sort of one of those, I guess, sort of careers, industries where everyone these days can go out and buy a camera. So my camera, for example, is 1300D, nothing special. Combined total cost of all of this is about 500 quid. So it's, cheaper than your average iPhone these days. So anyone can come out and buy one, and you sort of tend to get, oh, my mate can do it cheaper, or my mate can do it for free, which isn't a problem. That's absolutely fine. People have got to start somewhere, or they've got to start at the base and then learn up and get their skills higher, which isn't a problem. I think it's getting people to recognise it's not just the hour or 2 hours that you spend on a shoot. It's the 4 hours you spent beforehand looking for locations and the right time to be at those locations, and then it's the 5, 6, 7, 8 day afterwards that you spend editing the photos and making sure they're spotless, or spending. So, for example, the most recent rollers we've got from the other weekend, my sensor was dirty, so each shot I've probably spent about 5 minutes just going around cleaning up the image, just every single one, for little spots of dirt and little speckles of dirt.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's from
It's things like that. Yeah.
So it's that people just see generally the final image, and I have put a few befores and afters on every now and again just to try and show, what actually goes into it. But yeah, there's a fair bit more work than just point and shooting, spending an hour, 2 hours with someone that goes into it, really.
Yeah, and I think as well, you can tell the difference when someone does something like me, where it's just point and shoot, and then when you go and put the amount of effort that you do into the photos, and when people say, "Oh, my mate can do it for free," great, let him do it then. But if you want, there's a difference between a good photo and a great photo. If you want a great photo, be prepared to pay for it, because people's time is money. And if you were to say you were to average someone's time at £10 an hour, right? Mm-hmm. As you say, it's hours before. If you got to scout a place that you're not familiar with, it's then the hours that you're there, and then the hours after editing. So even 100 quid is reasonable if you were to take into consideration that you're spending definitely more than 10 hours in total.
Yeah, and then that's not even taking into account stuff like subscriptions. So Lightroom and Photoshop isn't free. Well, it is free, but if you want to get all the features, it's not free. You've then got stuff like storage, which you have to pay for, whether it be online via Dropbox, Google Drive, something like that. The memory cards you have to pay for. You've got stuff like bags, tripods, lenses, filters, all this stuff, the fuel and just general wear and tear on your own car. If you're driving, you've got to account for. So yeah, it's all one big thing. But people, I won't say everyone, because it's not everyone, but there are some that just see it as, oh, they spent an hour, 2 hours there. That's it. That's all, because that's all they can necessarily see. They don't see all the other work that goes into it.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to starting in photography, if you were to give people advice on the best way to start out, because I don't know whether you do, but I get messages quite a bit, not so much on the photos themselves, but they'll say, oh, how do I find good locations, or where do you go, like where do you go for your shots? And there are some spots that I do like to keep to myself, just to kind of Because if you start spreading out every location to go to, then everyone's going to go there, and before you know it, the location is kind of used too much. You know, I think there are plenty of spots on Instagram that you see time and time again because everyone goes to the same spot, and it's fun the first few times, but when you send 100th photo of a car parked in front of the bay in Canary Wharf in London, for example, you know,
I was literally about to say that one shot of the dock that goes down, you've got Canary Wharf in the background. Everyone, London's a massive place, but everyone seems to go there. I agree. Obviously, it's a great place and it is a great location, but it has been sort of, like you say, once someone knows about a location, it can get done to death a little bit, and then it's sort of loses its edge and it loses its like uniqueness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose any tips I'd give is Google Earth is your friend, Google Maps is your friend. So there'll be times where I'll just spend an evening, go on Google Earth. I'll either start around here, or I'll just choose somewhere and just start effectively driving around on Google Earth just to see what's there, see what's about. Or if I'm out driving or, you know, just out with someone, I'll normally have Google Maps on my phone. If I drive past a road or somewhere I think might be good, I'll just pin it on my Google Maps, save it as a location, and then you end up with a UK map dotted with pins everywhere of places that you think might be good to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sort of, there are tons of places, absolutely tons of places available everywhere, really.
Yeah, the thing you mentioned about pinning on Google Maps, I do the exact same thing, but with the club and deciding what roads to drive. Yeah. So on our first run, we were driving down a certain quite nice twisty section of road, and suddenly off to the right saw a huge lay-by that I'd never noticed on Google Maps before, and thought, that'd be quite good for future stopping points. And it is now going to be the planned final stopping point on this weekend's Cotswold run, because it's a huge lay-by. You could get 30 cars in there easy if you wanted to. And as you say, it's things like that. It's just coming across stuff and being proactive and just saving it on Google Maps and saying, right, I'm going to go back there later. Because I do the exact same thing, you know, going on Street View and thinking, that road looks quite twisty, or that road looks quite scenic, and then save, pin it, and go back to it later.
Yeah, exactly. And then there'll be times where, so I've messaged you before about locations, and obviously sometimes we'll be like, yep, sound, it's there, we'll go and shoot there, or yeah, not a problem. Sometimes obviously I can understand some people want to keep a location to themselves. So like we said, it will lose that sort of unique feel to it. But yeah, it all depends. Some people like keeping things a secret. Some people like just sharing out all their knowledge, which completely fine. Do what you like.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line to it. So I used to do a lot of photos at a place called Walton Hall. Now people know where it is because I've told them, but for a good 6 months, I sort of kept it quiet just because it was, you know, you do kind of like to have that unique sense, but at the same time, you don't want to be too selfish. I'd say it's fine to keep a location secret up until a point where you've used it enough, and then let people know where it is, and then they can go and enjoy it as well. Because at the end of the day, photography isn't meant to be a dog-eat-dog world, you know.
Absolutely not.
But at the same time, it is sometimes nice to have an edge over someone else if you've got a location that no one else has. It's a fine line, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think once you've got the sort of the first shot, like the first sort of strike, I think after that, generally, if someone's going to use it, they're going to use it. If they want to know where it is, then fair enough.
Yeah. Zach, obviously, I know that you, when it comes to photography, you don't do it, but have you got any questions for Dan regards photography from a sort of an outsider's perspective? Because I could ask questions, but some of these questions I know the answer to partially already.
Yeah. So one you probably won't get is I don't know. What is your sort of go-to shot? What is your signature shot? Because every photographer that I see has their own little way of doing stuff. So Rob is very front on. He likes his front on, and he likes his ears as the wing mirrors and stuff like that, because that's the way the Mini is. And he does that with because he's found that little thing that he likes. What would you say yours is? Because you must pick up trends from when you're doing the editing, and you go, okay, this is sort of me, and what have you.
So I think for me, my favorite shot to get is, and always will be, the roller shot. Just because if you can get it right, then they look unbelievable. So one of the best ones I think I've taken, aside from the other weekend with yourself and all the guys there, was last year, in that brief period where we could go out and see people for a little bit. I went down to Surrey, and it's an MX5 shot, and it's on a bit of dual carriageway, and there's trees either side, and the sun's just starting to peer through, and I'm probably about 5 inches off the ground, not a lot. And yeah, for me, that's probably one of my my shots that's right up there. Is I've done well there.
Okay, so for people that don't know, can you explain the roller shots? Because
Yeah. Okay, so a roller shot is when you've got subject car or cars, and then you've got a camera car. Generally, the camera car will be in front, unless you want to get shots from behind. And then the photographer will be leaning out of the passenger window, or if you're in Mexico, you'll be leaning out of a boot or something like that. And then you'll be taking a shot at quite a slow shutter speed, ideally the speed you're going or slower. The slower it is, the better, but then you risk having more blurred shots. So just generally more shots that don't look any good out of focus. Yeah. And then all you've got then is the car nice and in focus and sharp, and then everything else around it is blurred out, basically. Yeah, that's what a roller is.
Okay. Would you be open to sort of going into the world of like motorsport, or like for the likes of F1, or any like grassroots events or something like that? Just because like that's so your type of photography is sort of pretty cars, shall we say? They're not race cars, are they? So obviously that's a totally different genre of photography. It's totally different technique and everything else. So would you be sort of looking to go to that future, or are you just going to focus on that sort of one genre?
I think for me, ultimately, I kind of prefer the sort of the magazine shots. So the stuff you see in Autocar, Evo, Top Gear magazine, where it's, I don't know, the car is only sort of like 10% of the actual shot, but then you've got the Yorkshire Dales in the background, and you can see that it's hooning it down a path in the Yorkshire Dales. And then there's another one on my Instagram of an A1 that was just going through the trees, and the trees are all blurry front and back, and then the car's sort of in the middle of the shot. And the ones where it's not just there's a car, there's a photo, you create the scene around it. So if you can, obviously you can control it and you can do what you want with it. But if it's a case of you're just out there and you've got to do what you can with the shot, then yeah, I prefer those sort of shots as opposed to like a show car or show scene sort of shot, really.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because obviously everybody's got their own little preference. Whether that is birds or show cars or
yeah,
what you do. So it's interesting to see people's different perspectives and stuff like that. So but where would you say sort of your not to reveal anything, but your go-to location is in the local area? Because we all know Rob's is the Chesterton Windmill. He loves it.
Forza.
Sorry?
Forza Horizon vibes, mate.
Yeah, yes, it is Forza Horizon. It is. He also likes the village in the Cotswolds as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's also Forza, but yeah.
I guess I don't really sort of have a favourite area, I suppose. I guess because of where we live in the countryside, we've got the joy of slightly more built-up areas. So Stratford and Coventry, you've got some really nice inner city sort of shots where it's more built up, it's more urban. Digbuff is really, really nice to get shots from. Obviously, it's sort of like Canary Wharf. It's sort of been done to death a little bit because it's such a common place, but you can get some amazing shots there. On the flip side, Burton Dasset is always a great place. Obviously, it's normally heaving in the summer, but when you can get there either quite late, obviously now at the moment, 9:30, 10 o'clock, you've still got a bit of light around, or get there really early in the morning. So the GT86, the yellow wide body GT86 that I shot in, I think it was November or December, got there at like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was about 4 degrees, it was freezing, but caught the sunrise. So you get that really nice golden hour sunrise. Yeah, I think if I had an ultimate choice, I'd say countryside more than urban for locations, really.
Do you do photography as a business? This is sort of, so is it a business or is it a hobby? So when does it cross over as well?
So ultimately, I want to turn it into a business and into my sort of career, my job. But at the moment, it's sort of like a hobby slash sometimes paid opportunity. I'm still very much honing skills and developing as a photographer, and still getting to grips with angles and what looks good on certain cars and doesn't look good on other cars and all that. I think with everything, it's every day I'm just trying to progress and get my skills better to a point where they're at a high standard, and then I can then push on to the next level after that.
So we've just had our first 2 proper club events. We've had obviously the photo shoot, which was last weekend, and the weekend prior we had the 4-day event. Both of you at some point have been onto an open road event. If you were to give any feedback on them, what would you say? And if I had to improve it in any way for the future, what do you think could be done?
Yeah.
I'll pose it to Zach first. Sorry. Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine. Personally, I really liked what we went on because it was fairly local and that suited me. Because if you know me, I'm quite tight anyway on money and fuel. Not physically. I just don't like to spend any money unless it's on tools or something else. So I personally like to save my money, but that's why it suited me down to the ground. So like I might do one of the sort of the longer ones, but I couldn't do them. Like I'd probably do one a year. So some of the longer ones just don't appeal to me. I think I know obviously the Cotswolds is really nice, Warwickshire is really nice. But I definitely think there's other locations that potentially you could explore. Obviously, you're well driven around those, so you know them very well. But potentially, sort of into Northamptonshire and sort of a bit further down. So just I think broaden it a little bit. Obviously, that will come with experience and also driving more.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, well, you say about keeping, you like the local vibe.
Yeah.
What I would love to do is have a spot that we can regularly park up in. Yes, the club is based around driving and the act of going out for a drive, and it always will be. We've always got to start somewhere, and you've always got to end somewhere. And what I'd love to do at some point is find the location that we can reliably go to and have like a monthly meet that's a local one, just an event that doesn't require going further afield, because for the foreseeable future, all of the events that are planned are all big events, you know, full day, 8-10 hour worth of your day, you know. And it's sure, not appealing to my bank account because it's at least a tank each time I go. but you know, it is what it is. We wouldn't have these cars if we couldn't afford to run them. But I would like to create an event that's just appeals to the local people, something that they can enjoy, that's regular, you know.
Yeah, and I think that would definitely appeal to me more, because as if you've watched any of our previous episodes, we've gone on about Cafe in a Machine, and previously that was sort of the local spot. Dan knows this point of contention with a lot of people in the local area, because he has his views on it as well, but which we won't labour on today because that's not what the episode's about. But that used to be sort of the spot you would go, and fortunately we have another one, which is called Gilk's Cafe, which I really like, but it is on the smaller side. So I don't know if you potentially could do something with them, or you could find something else. But I know you mentioned potentially doing sort of once a year, doing sort of one big event that everybody drives down to, and then it's a bit more like a show car, and then driving back up, but enjoying the to and from as well. I know you mentioned that previously in conversation, but
yes, yeah. The other thing on a similar point to that, the idea of driving somewhere, staying somewhere, coming back, is I'd also like to try at some point and do weekend events, so over several days, like I say, a long weekend away, because I'd love to do the Lake District. And whilst it is doable in a day, I know people who have done it, it's a really, really long day. It's an 18-hour day. You know, I wouldn't mind doing it once, but I wouldn't want to not put the pressure on people, but I doubt many people would want to do a day that long. So instead, I'd like to try and split it up over a couple of days. Say drive up on Friday afternoon, stay there all day Saturday, most of the day Sunday, and come back in the Sunday evening. That would be great. On the point of like single day things, it would be great if we could find a location to park up. But the issue is, as I'm sure most clubs have found, is the stigma around cars, because there are plenty of clubs that give cars a bad name, a bad rep, and it makes it increasingly harder for landowners and councils and police forces to. It makes it increasingly hard to cooperate with them, because they will just point blank refuse to let you host a meet before you even do it. There are people who are more amicable, and hopefully we will find somewhere at some point that means we can host car meets. But again, the club is more focused around driving. So really, it only needs to be a point that we stop off for food, for example, like a roadside cafe or restaurant that we can just stop off for half an hour or an hour or so, and then continue driving. But yeah.
What do you think about it, Dan? Obviously, you've done both events, or the precursor, so the promo, and obviously the two actual. So you've been there both.
So currently I've sort of tried to get involved in every single day or every single event that's happened. I'd say generally, as I said at the beginning, the meeting new people and seeing different cars and just chatting to people and seeing the passion that we all share, the sort of the base level passion that we all have for these cars, and the sort of extension of our arm, so to speak, of what we do. You can't beat that. Even if it's just someone talking about like Dan with his MG, or if it's a guy with the Scooby from the other week, it's always good to see. So obviously, one of the only downsides for me is sometimes it can feel, I guess, a little crowded, I guess, because obviously you can't predict traffic. So sometimes on a road, you see it on Google Maps, it's really nice and twisty, and you think, I can definitely have a bit of fun there, and then you get stuck behind someone who's can't go as fast, or stuck behind just a general public or a tractor, God forbid, and then it's sort of minor little hiccup, and then sometimes you just can't predict the weather either, you know. So the Warwickshire Loop, obviously it was a cracking day, really good. By the end of it, I was ready to go home, I reckon, because we raining for quite a bit, and Burton Does It in the rain and in the wind is sort of sideways, so it's at your own risk if you get out of the car, you know. But yeah, the longer days and going up to the peaks and all that sort of stuff, I can't wait, because I'll drive anywhere for anything generally. And yeah, the Peak District one looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and yeah, it should be a good summer, I reckon, for the club.
Yeah. On the point of the Peak District, a little bit of info. Although saying that, the podcast will have gone out by the time the tickets have gone live. But this still applies for those who have got tickets. So thank you if you've got a ticket. Brilliant. This event is capped at 20 cars. So the first one, the Warwickshire Loop, was 25. The Cotswolds run was 15, and this one's 20. The reason it's bang in the middle is because 25 did feel like perhaps a bit too many. It was a lot of cars to manage. We were lucky on the day because traffic wasn't too bad on the Warwickshire Loop, but if it had been, it would have got split up very quickly. The Cotswold one's 15 because of the parking situation in the Cotswolds. It will be packed with tourists at places that we try to park. So the less cars you've got, the more likely you are to be able to park everyone up. But I think 20 seems like quite a happy medium for the peaks, and it's probably the number that we will go with for most of the further afield events, because there are nice big car parks when you get out to places like the Peak Districts and Snowdonia. There are nice open car parks where we shouldn't have a problem to park. But yeah, 20 people seems like a kind of a nice rounded figure. And the plan as well is to have pace cars. So we'll sort of explain what we mean by that. We're going to try on each run to have at least 4 pace cars, including my car. So my car, the Mini, or whatever I'm in, will always be at the front. And then throughout the 20 or so cars, there will be certain pace cars. We'll tell everyone which of these cars they are. And people driving the pace cars will know exactly where we're going. And we'll also all be in contact via walkie-talkie. So if someone does get lost, they can follow these cars in pretty good knowledge that they know where they're going. So the group as a whole is less likely to get split up. We still want everyone to use the Google Maps links provided, but from feedback that we have had, occasionally, particularly if you've got CarPlay, Apple CarPlay, Google Maps doesn't seem to always work. It can scramble the route, which we didn't foresee. So on future events, you will have pace cars. You will know which cars they are, and you can follow them in the knowledge that they know where they're going, so you won't get lost.
Yeah, that's quite a good idea. I hadn't thought about that, because actually, even though we had, I think it was 8 cars on the promo shoot, we still had a couple go loose and rogue, and even though we had we still had the link, yeah, it still proved to be a little bit of a nightmare. But how was 25 cars on the Warwickshire Loop? Because this was a point of deliberation for yourself and myself and other members of the sort of the founding people of the group. It's sort of that was a big discussion of how many cars do we let on these things, because 10 seems not a lot, because that's in theory only 10 people if you've only got obviously one person per car. But then 25 seems a nice number, but then it's a lot of cars. So, but yeah, how was that? And obviously, sort of know why you're looking to reduce those numbers for the longer runs.
It's weird, because in your mind you think 25 cars doesn't sound like a lot, but it is quite a lot of metal. And if you go to your average size McDonald's car park, they've probably got 18 spaces, 20 spaces, most of them, unless it's a big one. Only 20 spaces or so. So we'd fill up a McDonald's, you know. When you put it into perspective like that, you realise how much of a logistical challenge it can be. Hence the idea of the pace cars. It means that people don't have to try and follow the leader. Also the reason for the Google Maps link. I've been on plenty of runs in the past, mostly mini runs, because that's the car I've got, and there are some really great proactive mini clubs that host amazing drives out. And it's a really popular one. And the last time I went on it, there were like 85 minis. What those guys do, they don't post up a Google Maps link, but they print out a sheet and give rough directions on the day. And on the sheet, it will have postcodes that you can put in as you go along. Postcode, so it's like a point-to-point thing, a bit like the Google Maps. The only issue I find with that is if you're out in the sticks in the middle of nowhere where you haven't got phone signal or internet, if you're sat there trying to put a postcode on your phone, it's not going to work because you haven't got your internet connection. So the reason behind doing the Google Maps route means that when you start a Google Maps journey, whilst you've still got internet, the phone pre-downloads the data, the map data. So then if you were to go to a location out in the sticks where you lose connection, the map should still work. But yeah, 25 cars was a lot. We might try and do one with more cars. I mean, 85 minis, it did kind of work. The only thing I'd say about 85 minis is that it does create a traffic jam every time you get into a village or something. So cars back up, and as Dan made the point earlier, you find what looks to be a really nice road. But if you have too many cars, you might not be going at a good enough pace to enjoy it. I'm not saying going too fast, but you could end up going too slow because you're essentially in one large traffic jam the entire day. So I feel like around 20 cars will be a happy medium in general for most runs.
Yeah, definitely. And with the pace cars thing, so on the Warwickshire Loop, obviously I was one of the pace cars at the rear, and it was fine. Obviously, for me being at the back, I'd say the only issue was with yourself being at the very front, obviously always worrying where everyone else is. So yeah, I think it's just the confidence in the pace cars, knowing what they're doing and knowing that they'll be able to keep the bunch of cars that they've got sort of in control of together. And then when we get to the halfway point, end point, fuel stop, whatever it may be, that we will all just meet there, whether it be a couple minutes later or whatever. Like, we will get there eventually.
Yeah, that was the one thing that kind of gave me a bit of anxiety on the day. Was I found myself constantly looking in the rearview mirror, because you get to a long straight and think, oh, I'll wait to see if I can see all the cars coming, and then you only see half of them and you're like, oh, where's the other half? And it's to be expected. But yes, that's the main reason why we're going to do these pace cars, so I can trust that those people who I've trusted to, look after a certain group of people, that they know where they're going. So in future, I don't have to worry too much about looking in my rear view mirror and I can't see everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know you've just posted the other day that there are stickers available. Do you want to go through the prices and sort of colours and what have you? And
yes, so we've just launched our stickers. They're Open Road Club logo stickers for now. We want to try and do more designs in the future, but for now it's just one design, which is just our logo. They are available currently in 3 sizes, so 15 centimeters long, 17 centimeters long, and 20 centimeters long. 15 is the most popular. In terms of pricing, it's £1.50 per sticker for a 15 centimeter, £2 for a 17, and £2.50 for a 20. And available colors, so colors that you can we're going to eventually make a little shop, and stickers that you can order off the shop. Sticker colors outright will be black, white, red, blue, and yellow. Those are the most common types of vinyl that we've got available. There are other types of vinyl though, so if you want a specific color type, then feel free to message us and see if we've got it. We can make a special order. We also do offer matte color variants, so these are all gloss colors that we currently will be putting on the shop. Matte is available, but the issue with the matte vinyl is it's quite a lot thicker than the gloss vinyl, so it only really works if you do a bigger picture, a bigger logo. Like it's on the back of my Mini. I've got, I think it's a 45 centimeter long one, so it's like that, and it works because it's big enough that the thickness of the vinyl doesn't matter. If it's a little one, the vinyl's too thick and it's hard to cut it. So in general, it's gloss colours, and yeah, £1.50 for 15 centimeters, £2 for 17 centimeters, and £2.50 for 20 centimeter long stickers.
Yeah, I really like the logo, as I've said previously, but I want to see oil slick.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oil slick, to my knowledge, is available, but it would just he hasn't got a lot of. I say he, my friend Dan, he's the guy that cuts them, and he's the one that's got the vinyl cutter and all the vinyl available. I think he does have some oil slick vinyl, but not a huge amount. But I'm sure if you'd want some, we could ask him and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely for the toolbox.
Yes.
as the other one fell off, but it's still stuck on there with the plastic cover that you get with it. Still can't get it off.
One thing I'll say is, if you do get one, the easiest way I find to apply it to the car, with some stickers they say to leave the backing paper on for quite a while to let it stick. With these, I'd say don't do that. Do the opposite. But before you start peeling it back, get a hairdryer to it just to lightly warm the glue, and then it should peel back, and the sticker material should peel off the backing paper easier, because it can be quite hard if it's cold. So yeah, that's a bit of advice. If you do get one, use a heat gun or a hairdryer on full heat just for a couple seconds, just to loosen up the glue.
Yeah. And how will they be able to buy them if they want one?
So at the moment, we're just going to be doing it on a case-by-case basis on either Facebook or Instagram, just by sending us a message and saying which one you want. We are in the process of doing a website, and on that website will then be a shop where you can go into a basket and order it that way. And the way that Dan will do the orders, Dan Hooper, he will only make an order when a certain number are available, because he maps it out on his computer, and you can get a certain number of stickers per piece of vinyl. But it won't be worth doing if he only gets one sticker for one colour and ends up having to cut a whole huge piece of vinyl just for a little sticker. But yes, we're going to have a shop, and you'll be able to order from there. But that's we're in the process of trying to work out how to make a website, because there's so many different subscription-based services that make websites, but I'm trying to work out kind of the legality around it, because I want to make sure that I own the domain name. I've bought a domain name, but I want to make sure that I can use it on sites like Wix or Squarespace. I want to make sure that I can actually use my own domain and not one of their domains on the website, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to see that shortly. But yeah, that's definitely news for me. I didn't know that was in the pipeline. So
that was a thing today. I started that earlier on. I just saw a random advert for Squarespace, and the template's brilliant. But I just want to make sure that if it is a website made through them, that I do own it. If you see what I mean, like I still own the copyright, and they don't have anything held over it. I'd rather make sure that it is mine. You see what I mean?
Definitely, yeah. And if you want to buy any stickers, the Open Road Club the Instagram is on the screen right now, as well as Dan's and obviously mine. But yeah, is there anything else we can talk about?
I mean, you guys can talk about F1 if you watched it. I heard it was quite a good race, but I didn't watch it, I'm ashamed to say.
I didn't watch it. I saw the highlights. So it looked like a cracking race.
Yeah,
it was amazing. So the question I've got for you, Zach, is do you think Pirelli are in the wrong for their tyres?
So there's been a lot of memes going around regarding this, because obviously previously there's been Bridgestone, Pirelli, and Dunlop as well. So
And Michelin,
yes. So I've read into this previously, because there's been a lot of tyre failures and stuff like that, and it seems I think they've got the hands tied a touch by the FIA. There's Rob
Sorry.
dropping his phone, but I think the Pirelli have got their hands tied a touch because you look at the likes of WEC and stuff like that. They go for hours and hours and hours on these tires, and it must be. And from my research, it seems to be it's like an FIA ruling rather than that they can only last a certain amount of mileage or a certain amount of laps or something like that. I don't quote me on that, but I don't know the specific like rule it would be. But from my research, it looks that way. So obviously, we never want tire failure because tire failure can ultimately, well, what happened to Max Verstappen? It caused a crash. So, and it has previously as well. But I also think it's part of it's also part of the FIA ruling, and I think the Pirelli, the manufacturer, has got their hands tied a touch. But I think they I think they need to make this a bit more sort of evident that either they're not passing the buck, but also the FIA need to sort of go, fair enough, like we've put limits in place, and from those limits and the research that I've done, it's to keep it exciting, because if they could make a tire that could last forever, wouldn't have any pit stops, and then the race would be stopped. But look at Bottas for the other week. They couldn't get the wheel off, so they had to retire it. So and you wouldn't have had that if you had infinite tires. So I can see why they've done it, but also it's frustrating and also partially dangerous. So
because obviously Stroll's and Verstappen's crashes are you're looking close to 200 miles an hour, and they're going sideways at however many G's into a wall. So God forbid you had another incident like Grosjean. No one ever wants to see that ever. So I think you're right. It's a bit of both. So Pirelli, yes, they've got a tyre which is clearly got an issue, but yes, the FIA need to work on their ruling and make sure that they both talk and get something where it's exciting, yes, but also not potentially life-threatening, I reckon.
Definitely, and especially with both of them virtually being tyre failures as well, and Verstappen's being so like prominent as well, as he was winning the race, I believe, and he just outright had rear tyre failure, and it is just it's a bit bonkers really, because you have tires that look well. You in the WEC, they run them really hard. Obviously not for the whole 24 hours, but they're running for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. And I understand that there's the F1 is a shorter race and you require less tire, but why can't you push the tire technology? So that's just my bone of contention really. Is more safety and also technology really, which I think we're in agreement of anyway.
Definitely.
It definitely made a spectacle, and it definitely made headlines, which is arguably what they want to do, but also it could have ended in disaster.
It could have ended much worse than what it did. Like you said, obviously it got the headlines, and it's sort of, I guess now there'll be more general public people that might want to watch the next race because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if on lap 20 a tire is going to explode and it's going to be a safety car. But I think in general this season it's definitely more exciting than last season. Obviously everywhere when you see the end of Q3 and everyone's within 0.4 of each other in the top 10, it's a lot more exciting.
And the likes of Vettel as well. The fact he didn't even get into Q3, I don't think. He only got into Q2. He was 11th. He qualified. But from what I saw, but he came second. Second. And the fact that everybody's questioning, well, why are they so quick? Well, it wasn't. It was just circumstantial, but also it was a good car and also a good driver at that. You can't knock them for a decent car. Like, let's say there's a lot of contention around Aston Martin at the moment because they were deemed as copying
the Mercedes
car, but from Mercedes, sorry, but it's doing well. But also, you look at the standings, and we don't basically have a lockout of Mercedes. You've got Red Bull back on top for the first time in 6 years. And it's only by about 4 points. It's not much.
Exactly. Normally, by sort of this time last year, Mercedes were almost already got it. You know, they were running away with the constructors. Hamilton was sort of running away with 1-2s every race with Bottas, and now you generally couldn't call it, I don't think, race to race.
Definitely. And I think I know a lot of true F1 fans sort of don't like me mentioning this, but I really like Drive to Survive. It just shows you, yes, you've got to keep in your mind they're doing it for dramatic emphasis. That's what they're going to do, because they want to create headlines, they want to create controversy, they want people to carry on watching. They do that very well, but you also get to see the stuff and the opinions of the people that you might not get, because previously you would just focus on the driver. You would focus on Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button, David Coulthard, what their opinion of the race was. But now you get the opinion of all of the race directors and also why sort of team principals would go to the FIA. And also it highlights the other parts of the team that you necessarily might not have seen prior to it, which is really good. And I like seeing that sort of background, really, because it's
the behind the scenes sort of thing of it.
Yeah, and I feel that I know you always know that something's going on behind the scenes. There always will be. But the fact that like even the fact that Red Bull dropped Renault as a sort of an engine supplier and went to Honda, and they hated each other, and then Ricciardo went from Red Bull to Renault all in one season, and it if you weren't a massive fan already, you wouldn't have known that, and it was massive. And the sort of everything that got embroiled with it, the teams and everything, it was all theatrical, and it was all the way they edited it, but it was still real, and it still happened. It wasn't like they could, you're going to Renault. No, that was his choice. So but yeah, I personally like it, but I definitely think this season, as you said, is the best season so far.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's just like you said, like, just because you can't predict what's going to happen, and everyone is so close. And I think I genuinely think now that Mercedes are actually struggling, and Red Bull and even Ferrari to a point, and McLaren have caught up that much, sort of in the off season, that it's going to go down to the last couple of races, I think.
I think that's the way it should be, really, because it wasn't racing; it was a parade for Lewis Hamilton. It was a parade for Lewis Hamilton. It was basically get in line, lads. That was it, really. And George Russell at the back when he didn't brake. But that's what, from an outsider, obviously I used to watch it. I haven't watched it in the last couple of years, but I keep an eye on it. I watch the highlights and what have you. But yeah, this is definitely one to watch, and I think it's the most exciting season for a while, because nobody's dominating. Like, well, the only person to finish in the points every single race is Lando Norris. Like, he's literally 21, I believe, and
Yeah.
he's above like a 3 or 4 world champion. You don't normally have that.
Yeah, you can't predict it really at all, can you?
No, and I'm buzzing about this actually. I do like it. I do like Lewis Hamilton, because he is a talented driver. I won't knock that from him, but also it got boring. And
Yeah,
most
it's
people
nice
would
to see
agree.
that it's nice to see he's got competition now, and he's genuinely got to actually drive to the best of his abilities to, at the moment, even try and secure a podium, let alone a win.
Definitely, and especially with the hot. It's not just the cars. The tires obviously are adding a whole another dimension to it, which is exciting, but also they need to reel it in. But yeah, also I think they should. I think it. This is going to be controversial, but I think they should open tire manufacturers back up, so you don't just have one set tire manufacturer for that race. Because you can then have tire and then car variables.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I don't know if you do. I think it was the USA Grand Prix. Was it 2006 maybe? Where I think it might have been Bridgestone and McLaren, Michelin, or Bridgestone and Dunlop, where because of tire issues, I think there was only 3 manufacturers that actually took part in the race.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would definitely open up that element of who's going to do what tire's going to last longer, and definitely.
And it would also drive the market and also technology, because that's the whole point of F1, and that's the reason it started. And most of racing is to improve a car, improve technology. So you wouldn't have got turbos if it wasn't for F1. You wouldn't have got the Cosworth DFV, I believe. You wouldn't have had that amazing engine without F1. You wouldn't have got 3-way suspension without the likes of rallying and off-roading and stuff like that. So all of these sort of sports were there for a purpose, and I think that's what they've lost, because at the moment it's very theatrical and it's all about drama, but actually behind the scenes it's all about the technology. And I think that is another area I think they need to open up, but that's my opinion. I don't know about yourself, but yeah.
No, I'm the same. Like, if you think now how good a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyre is, if Michelin got back into F1 a few years' time, those tyres on the road will just be incredible, I reckon.
Yeah, and arguably that's the next thing. I'm going to buy myself, sort of shoot myself in the foot, really, because I work in the sort of the electrification of car industry. I work in that industry. I work in the battery industry. So yes, it will be boring, because I love the screaming V12s and the V8s, and I love the theatrics around that. But I also like the 4-banger and the 2-stroke era and stuff like that. But I also love the whine of the engine. The whine of the motor and the mechanicalness. If you've ever heard an electric car in anger, it sounds frightening. And especially when they're revving up to 10,000 RPM, and it's just like screaming at you, and you're just like, this is gonna let go. It's like when you hit that rev limiter of that car, you're just like really, like you really want to push it that hard. But I don't think people have actually given electric cars sort of a chance, really, because they say, oh, it's just a milk float at the end of the day. And I don't think Formula E has the electric Formula series has given a good rep for them. It's fairly boring and mundane. They've tried to replicate something that is a V12 era in electric. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
But the other one that you might have seen is Rallycross. Rallycross, they're now developing electric rallycross cars, which can beat 650 horsepower, like full on like World Cup cars. Like, it's bonkers. And you've just got an electric motor, and they're a whole nother dynamic. And
yeah, I was going to say, for anyone that's never watched Rallycross, it's sort of, well, it's just four to six cars going round a combination of concrete, tarmac, and gravel at stupid speeds, and I mean stupid speeds, and it's carnage, isn't it? It is. It's great entertainment.
It's brilliant. If you ever get to go to like the Linden Hill or anything like that, especially within the UK, because it's still big in the UK, and that's where it came from. It was basically the Group B cars got banned, so let's put them on a track, and that's pretty much it. It's literally it is never changed since. And you now basically you get a WRC car and you throw 600 horsepower at it, and basically a touring car driver and some gravel, which who wants any more? It's brilliant. And the races are only like six laps long, and or you just get the theatrics and the everything. It's brilliant.
Yeah. It's like I don't watch a huge amount of motorsport in general, but Rallycross does have a certain nature about it that makes me keep going back and watching it. I think a big part of it is not a lack of rules, but they're very relaxed compared to some racing, like Formula One.
Yeah.
Where sort of mildly tapping your neighbour as you go around a corner, it's perfectly fine in Rallycross. They just do it just to sort of let you know that the other driver's there. But because it's allowed and because it's a very slapstick attitude, it does really well because of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also, like, F1 is so, if you touch a wheel, that's it. You probably lost a bumper or the tire's going to explode. In Rallycross, you drive into someone sideways, sound the bonnet's popped up, they'll still keep driving. They're sort of more robust in that way. So it's great fun. Great fun.
Yeah. You made Zach about Formula E. Do you think? Well, I'll when it comes to Formula E, I think unfortunately the image of electric cars hasn't done too well because of it. I understand why they started it in the first place, to try and prove that electric cars could be raced. And for a time, it was interesting. Like back when it first started, they were having city circuits in places like London. It was cool to see cars racing on the road. But I think it was last year or when it was, they had the embarrassment of cars running out of charge partway around the race. It's like if that was ever an advert to not get an electric car, that's it. And it seems to be down to some mismanagement somewhere within the racing series that has probably done more damage for the electric model or brand than anything else, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I'm all for electrification. I don't want to be forced into it because I like my rally car, and we'll go into sort of why different motorsports are good for reasons, but yeah, I don't think it has achieved what it set out to do, because the one thing I really don't like about the car industry is they've made electric cars look like futuristic renders, and that just doesn't make sense. You've already got a chassis. All you've got to do is adapt it to an electric battery and a motor. The batteries are now as big as a fuel tank, any city car, and the motors are a hell of a lot smaller than an engine, so you can actually have more room in the car. But I don't understand why they went for this futuristic look, especially with the Bmw i8. I hate the thing. It looks ugly. You can't get in it. Like, I've sat in it. You feel like you're getting in a McLaren, but it's an electric car and it looks shit. To be brutally honest, like if I'm gonna try and get in a car like that, I'm gonna get in something that like is a McLaren or a Senna or something like that. You don't get a BMW like that. That's not a BMW. A BMW is comfort, and you go and took your kids and your dog in your back, and if you want an M3, then you go and rag it. But the i8 just didn't, and the i3, and it just didn't make sense. Why?
Yeah.
And this is where Tesla have just hit the nail on the head. You've got to say Elon Musk, even though he's a bit dubious sometimes, but he's hit the nail on the head of people want a normal car and don't want to stand out like a sore thumb, because about 10 years ago you'd have been called a tree hugger because you're driving around in your Leaf or your Note or whatever. But now electric cars are coming into the scene and they're becoming more and more. But people want to be normal, and that's the car industry has lagged 10 years behind. Now they're only just doing vans. Now they're only just doing trucks. They could have done it 10 years ago, and the car industry would be fine. But they were too stubborn, and they tried to make it all a big thing and put people off. And I don't know, it just grinds my gears. It's what I've got forever. But I don't know what about you, Dan, because obviously you like to look at these pieces of machinery and take photos of them.
Obviously I'm in the motor trade as well myself. So constantly working with the ever evolving electric nature. And you're right, I think if they'd have started without the sort of general public cars, but with the Amazon vans and like they have now, like you say, then it would have been more accepted now when they're trying to make it more mainstream. I think one of the main issues they really struggle with and they've really lacked in is the infrastructure. Just simply haven't got it in the UK. So obviously there's quite a few Tesla supercharging stations around the country, and getting a charger at your home now is easier than it was, say, a couple of years ago. But if you're going on, say, if, the Peak District trip, if we had someone there with a Tesla, they've probably got to stop off halfway through for half an hour to get a charge, potentially stop off before we come back. And I don't know, I feel like that's still about 5 years behind where electric cars are now. So they've got to double their efforts to try and catch up to it. And the unique way in which our countries ran and generally the British culture about things, I just don't think it will catch up, to be honest.
We are quite stubborn as a culture, as a group of people, especially the British. The British are very stubborn and very set in their ways. But yeah, I get what you mean about the infrastructure. The physical infrastructure isn't there. However, I would say there are some good ideas floating around about everyday and sort of city charging and what have you. And that revolves around the infrastructure that's already there. I'm not allowed to talk any more about it because it's on a public forum, but there's a lot of research going on in the background that I'm privy to, because that's the domain I'm in. Which all I'm doing is hitting my head against a brick wall, because I'm like, you've got a brilliant product, just put it out there. People would go, this is exactly what I need, and why don't councils start doing it? Because it just would make sense. So
sorry, you don't have to go too much into it if you're not allowed to, but I think we should definitely do an EV dedicated episode, and potentially get, if anyone watching this owns an electric car and wants to come on as a podcast on the podcast and show their side of things, their perspectives, we'd love to talk to you about any issues you have, any gripes, where it can be better, because us coming from a heavily petrol focused point of view, it is hard to look at electric cars and see them as a legitimate prospect, because as Zach says, the infrastructure just doesn't seem to be there yet.
Yeah, and I will definitely say, even coming from this background, batteries scare the hell out of me, and people don't understand them. And with petrol cars, they've been around. If it's going to go wrong, it can only go wrong so much. You're going to put a piston through the block. You're going to put a turbine, like from the turbo through the turbo, or you're gonna get rod knocked. With electric cars, and this is the one thing that scares me on YouTube, is home gamers touching high voltage batteries. It is horrendous. It will vaporize you in an instant. And it will. I've seen a knife be vaporized like that. It's like the end of a knife because somebody shorted something. And that was 36 volts. Not 400 volts that you've got in your Tesla at 400 amps. Like these things can kill you, and people are pissing around with them. Like that's the bit I'm unnerving, because people will try and do stuff to them, and you already seen them, but people aren't trained, and that's the horrible bit I do not like, from coming from the industry that I work in. And it just is just it. And I've built several batteries of my own. I've designed race car batteries because I've been involved in the electric Formula Student. And like even the people that have been trained to deal with the high voltage stuff still are idiots and still get too comfortable with being in close contact with HV. I saw somebody vaporize a spanner just by dropping it on a buzz bar. And if you don't know what a buzz bar is, it's the main electrical contact between different batteries or different modules. It's basically just wire, but it's normally exposed copper because of the connections and how it's manufactured. So that's why you should never open a lithium-ion battery, especially with the chemicals and stuff like that goes into it. Yeah. So Robson, me and from work at Snapchats, we're looking like a spaceman because of the PPE I have to wear, because I have to deal with the chemicals that go into them. It is getting better, but yeah, I definitely think we need to go into an EV episode because I can ramble on all night. But yeah, I definitely think the likes of Rallycross and stuff like that are helping the image, but F1 has, Formula E hasn't done that. And the car industry hasn't helped itself either. I don't think. And that's why Tesla are kicking their ass. To put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Tesla are doing so well, and Tesla is now the EV household name. Yes.
Yeah. When you think of electric, you do think of Elon, and you think of his company, because
you do.
The main thing is it's not just the range. The range doesn't matter as long as the infrastructure is good enough. And so far, Tesla is the most advanced infrastructure, not just in the UK, but across the world. It is better in places like the UK and the US where chargers are more prevalent, but they're getting there. And the really interesting thing to me is that Tesla have their own charging connectors. It tends to be that there are different companies that use different connectors, and only certain cars can use them. And that's where the issue is, because there isn't a set standard. In the UK, it's a 3-pin plug, and everything uses the same thing, right? Or another example is most phones are now starting to use USB Type-C because it's just good and it's quick. And Apple still use Lightning, but I think there are even plans in the works for them to go USB Type-C. We'll probably see it in the next iPhone, right? Tesla have got this infrastructure, and they're saying to car companies, you can use our network, you can use our charging cables, as long as you make sure that the connectors work. And these car companies just aren't taking them up on the offer. They either want to make their own systems, or I think it's because companies are trying to make their own infrastructure and aren't willing to collaborate with other companies. That's where the issue is, because there are so many different connection types, and you can only go to certain charging points in certain cars.
Yeah, and I think that this will be a massive thing, especially with the whole phone industry. The phone industry went into this about 10 years ago, but every manufacturer wants their standard to be the universal standard, like the USB-C. It's because they can then market it, and then they can make money off it, and nobody can decide. So it needs to be the likes of Europe or like the European Union even though Brexit and all, need to decide and basically come up with a standard and go, okay, like the NCAP standard of safety. Okay, we're going to use this plug, and this is the plug you're going to use. Because you don't want to be carrying around adapters or going, oh no, my car can't park in a Tesla spot because it can't be, it's not a Tesla, it's a BMW. But it's an electric car, so it takes the same electrons. It's just the interface that it goes with. But there'll be individual companies and what have you, but somebody needs to go, right, this is what we're going to do and run with it.
Yes, yeah. It needs something like what's going on, is it the global summit that's about to happen or is happening? You know, if there's something like that needs to be made, and it won't be, I very much doubt. But again, we'll go into that properly on another episode. Let's not get too bogged down now.
Yeah, but I think that's pretty much a wrap. We've rambled on about a lot of different topics, not just photography.
Been nearly 2 hours.
I know. It's told we go fast. Thank you, Dan, for coming on and expressing your opinions on various different topics. Not just photography. And thank you, Rob, again for chipping in. I thought I would be the one left out, but actually, as you saw, I got very passionate about certain stuff. As the motorsport came back out, I was like, yes.
Yes, and I was like, I'm going to be quiet now.
You disappeared for a moment. I don't know what happened to
you.
My
internet went down. I thought the whole thing had crashed, and I seemed to have lost my Wi-Fi. I went into 3G, and it just dropped out.
It's fine. Me and Dan had a good talk about F1. It's all good.
That's fine.
Thank you for coming on, and all the photos. If you want to see any more photos, check out Dan's Instagram. That's mainly where you put it, aren't they? Put your photos and what.
Yeah, normally my Instagram page. I do have a Facebook page as well, but I tend to just not post as much on that. And then also the Open Road Club, I always post quite a bit on there as well.
Yeah, so go and check Dan out. Obviously, check the Rally Race Guys YouTube channel out, and the other videos that we've got, and the other podcasts. If you want to hear any more of that, like and subscribe. Go and check out the Open Road Club for the next event, which will have already gone live. Unfortunately, again, we really need to time this better.
We should time.
So and thank you for all who attended on the last 2 runs.
Big thank you. It was the turnout was fantastic. You know, both occasions, tickets sold out within like 10-15 minutes, which is nothing we'd ever expect ever. So for it to be on our first events is ridiculous. And thank you for the support.
But thank you. Thanks for coming on and spending a couple of hours with us, Dan.
No problem.
And thanks, Rob, for not going to CNM and being a traitor.
It's free. Can I say I like to go and make the most of a free evening, having a pint and looking at nice metal.
Well, that could be taken different ways.
Nice cars.
Okay. You keep on saying metal, so my mind wanders. But thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.
See you later.